JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we are back with some more league racing. And if you haven't watched the first part of this race, please check out the video I did on Wednesday, because this is a sprint qualifying format. The first race is the 25% reverse championship order, which then decided the grid for the main race, which is this 50% right now. So you already know my finishing result because of where I'm starting now here on the grid third, but I would encourage you to watch that race. Hopefully you learned something, and it was a pretty entertaining one as well. So this is where the big points are. Rusty is in P11. Morris, the championship leader, LOA Morris, is in P5. And here we go. So now we got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights here. And as they go out, now trying to get a good start, and we get a very, very good launch. Pretty much a perfect start there, making sure we're covering off the position, and now we're up into P2 already. So I don't know who that was in second. I think that was Alex Yeno, I believe. He had an absolutely shocker of a start, so not sure what happened to him here, but we have managed to start into P2. And you can see in the first opening laps, just trying to get into this race, trying to get into the rhythm as quickly as possible. But HSR Porky is very, very fast. You can see he's actually extending the lead at this stage, with LOA Morris, the championship leader, finished third in every single race so far. It's just ultra consistent, and he has the pace. But someone has retired from the session, which has brought out the virtual safety car, and that's normally been a bit of a weakness of mine, trying to get good restarts under the virtual safety car. But after the result I had last time in the sprint race, I was coming into this with a lot of confidence, and you will see as we go further into this race, we just drive better and better, and we've actually managed to get a good restart under the virtual safety car here. See, the gap has come down to 1.1, extended the gap to behind as well. But as we skip through onto lap 7, you can see we've actually started to get a little bit more pace now. So actually closing up quite nicely, putting away from Morris behind, and the track is slowly but surely starting to dry. And that's where this setup I put on is definitely coming into my hands a little bit more, as FRA Arch unfortunately leaves the session. We're coming through into here now. Let's see what happens. Snipes SB sets the fastest lap of the race. HSR Porky goes into the pit. So DRS has now been enabled. Everyone pits behind me, apart from EXR Ollie, who follows me on. But I still felt the track wasn't quite dry yet. However, the main reason why I did this is because I knew how much more powerful fresher softs were, and it looks like it's going to become a 2-stop race, because it was too early for mediums, and if I went on the hards, they would just simply be too slow, because if you did 2 soft stints, you could pretty much catch up quite easily. So it's going to have to be 2 soft stints, and I wanted the fresher soft. So coming up into here, you'll be able to see we've actually lost quite a bit of time to HSR Porky. But I trusted the setup that I was using, I trusted the speed that I had, and I knew that I would get undercutted. But if I could come out quite close to some cars behind, getting the DRS, my car being very, very fast on a straight line as well, and if you just have fresher tyres around here, we saw this in esports as well, having 3 or 4 lap fresher tyres is quite powerful around this circuit. So I was feeling like I definitely had the speed, especially in the dry conditions. And I didn't want to go against people on an equal playing field. So if everyone was on the same freshness of tyres, it's going to be really, really hard to break out of people's DRS or overtake them. So I knew with this, as we're almost losing the car on the out lap, I knew that I would come out quite close behind Morris and Snipes, 2 of my main championship rivals, as well as I believe Rusty, who might have missed out at the start. He was the one who retired from the race. I think he had a crash at the beginning, so that's another main championship rival who was struggling there. But we're going to stay aboard here for quite a few laps, and also show quite a bit of raw footage in this race, because this was one of the best obstacle races I've actually done for quite a while. So hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully you can take something from it as well. But the goal right now is to just get within the DRS zone as quickly as possible. See, there is a gap up to HSR Porky, but I felt confident again we would have to do pretty much 12 to 13 laps on this stint, which softs can do, but as they get towards the end of the tyre life, they will be struggling quite a bit. And with the setup I had on, it was particularly good with the tyre wear as well. So if I could just get close to these guys, I really believe that I had the pace to really start to control this race. And you can see EXR Ollie 1.9 seconds behind. The detection point is right here for the main straight, and we have managed to do that. So the battery is now on about 47%. Coming across the line, we are the quickest car on track at this stage of the race. As we skip on now, see Porky does a 10.0. What are we doing here? We're doing a 9.5, so going half a second faster at this stage. So the plan is working as we have this massive donation, which I will be reducing in size for the next time, don't worry. But back to the weather now.
No rain expected for the time being. Dry seem like the best tyre for now.
So it looks like it is going to be dry for the rest of the race. The track is pretty much almost fully dry now, and you can see we're really starting to mount on the pressure. Almost 3 seconds behind to Ollie, so that's how much time he's losing without being in the DRS. And you can see we've managed to recoup our battery up to very, very high. I think that's almost like 60-ish%, something like that. So we set another fastest lap of the race. So I was feeling very, very confident. However, we really need to start making some inroads on HSR Porky if we want a chance of winning this race. So we're putting a bit of pressure on Snipes. That forces him to actually overtake Morris, who is the championship leader at this stage. So it's crucial that we outscore him. We're about 14 points behind before coming into this race here. And we're about to see here now, this is exactly what I wanted to see. The red light is flashing. Red light of doom, some people call it. And what that means is that he is under 10% battery. And we're on about 70% battery. So at this stage, we had about 60% more battery than what he was carrying. And the thing is around Brazil is that it's so hard to recoup the ERS as well. If you're leading and pushing hard, it's almost impossible to save the ERS. It's about 2 to 3% of that time. So I'm going to go for the overtake here because I knew that he was very, very low on the battery power. There's pretty much nothing he can do. So we're going to take advantage of this, overtake him, and we still have over 50%, even though we've overtaken him. So really managing this race very well at this stage. The gap is 2.1 seconds up to HSR Porky, and you can see a little sigh of relief there. So doing exactly what we need to do at this stage, and we're going to stay on board probably for the next couple of laps because this was actually a very, very important part of the race. So the gap is now 1.9, 1.8. Snipes SB is having some really, really good paces. So this is really what I wanted as well. Seems like he is actually catching Porky as well, which is very, very good news for us. And the longer this race goes on, the better it will be. And we're in a really, really nice position right now because the next pit stop is going to be a first set of softs again because they definitely can't make it to the end of the race. But you want to be pitting really with maybe 12 laps to go, absolute maximum. So these guys are still going to have to stay out here for another 8 laps. And we're in this position already. So we're going to take the full racing line with this overtake here. And the gap is now 1.6 seconds. As we come into here, about 55% of the battery. This is where we actually decide to take a bit of a gamble though now. And the reason why it's a gamble is because what I said before, if you use all of your ERS and then you're not getting a DRS on someone, it's so hard to recover it. So we're going to be pushing very, very hard to get this battery power now. Or get back in the DRS zone, sorry. And I wasn't using the ERS in this part of the track because I wanted to see if I could just catch him on pure speed alone. And you can see, despite having him an older set of tyres, HSR Porky is absolutely rapid. It's pretty amazing that he was getting this level of traction despite having that freshness of tyres, because as I said, having even won that fresher tyres is pretty significant on this. And you can see it's only 4 seconds behind now, so we're going to be pushing really hard once again, but looks like he's pushing with the battery as well, because I think he could tell that I'm trying to get within the DRS zone, which the detection point is right about here, and we have missed it again. So you can see we're down to under 10% battery by the time we get to the end of the straight. It's a gamble that hasn't worked at this stage, and all of a sudden we've gone from being in a very, very strong position into a little bit more of a compromised one, and we're trying again, but we're still not close enough. And the only hope I had is that he was running his battery very, very low, as well as now Snipes is just going to re-overtake us because we just have nothing to use in a straight line. But the good thing is he's within the detection point of Porky, which I was hoping that would be the case. And now we get to re-save that ERS again, because being in the DRS is a lot less stressful on the engine. Doesn't have to work as hard because someone else is braking a hole through the air in front of you. And you can already see in the space of a couple of laps we've gone up to 40%, which I know is not going to be the case for HSR Porky, because he's got no one in front of him to kind of give him a tow and make it more efficient. So yeah, we're back in a decent position once again, but this is where the pit stop window is starting to open. So ideally I would have been the car ahead at this stage, and Snipes goes for a very, very bold undercut, which he's going to have to do 14 laps on softs, which is possible, but his tyres are going to be very, very worn at the end of it. So we decided to stay out again, getting in the DRS detection point, so still exactly where we want to be. Felt very confident that Porky would be much lower on the ERS, so he just pits this lap. We're going to go on for another lap, and the reason why we've done that is because with equal tyres, it's going to be so hard to overtake people. And we saw in this first stint how powerful it was to have the fresher tyres. I felt confident on going again, so I'm pushing with everything on this in lap, spotting the braking point quite nicely. Morris follows me in as well, so he was able to stay my DRS, which was
they've been held by traffic.
A bit of a pain, because now he's going to have the same freshness as me. But as you heard me say there, I believe Snipes and Porky have actually been held in a bit of traffic, so this has really played into our hands really, really nicely. And you can see Snipes has nowhere to be seen. Kimmy still out in the mediums out ahead of us, and we've actually come out ahead of Porky on fresher tyres as well. So this has literally played to perfection at this stage of the race. And now what the crucial part is to try and overtake Kimmy as soon as I can. Try and create a 1 second gap between myself and Porky, because if we can do that, the race could actually be even over if we manage to do that. So coming up through into here, is he going to defend? No, he's not. So we're just going to go down the inside here. And now let's see if we can make that 1 second gap to Porky. But the problem is that he's going to have the DRS from Kimmy regardless. So coming through into here, he actually goes down the inside of the final corner, and we had a bit of a decision to make here. Do we push it with the ERS to try and break out of it right now, as we've got 8/10 of a gap, or do we conserve it a bit? And I decided to conserve it, because you can see the gap is only now half a second. If we use all our battery then, and we were down to under 10% with 11 laps to go, it's going to be so hard to recoup that ERS, and we would have put ourselves in a very, very bad position, because my expectation is what you're about to see here now. Porky and the guys behind are not interested in overtaking me, and that's because you can save so much more battery from being the DRS in the car behind. And you can see here I'm 22% this lap. Let's see what it is at the end of the next one. See, we've barely managed to save that much battery at all. By the time we get down to the end of the straight, it's only going to be about 3 to 4% difference. And I can guarantee from him being the car behind, he's able to save much more than that. And as we're going to this time one, you can see we've saved 1% battery from being the car in the lead. So that's why you really don't want to be the car in the lead. And thank God we didn't use all of that battery to try and break out of it. Otherwise, we'd be in a very, very bad position right now. And even having the fresher tyres, this is not a good spot to be in. So I knew I had to do something in this race in order to change it around. So coming through into here, the last thing I want is to be overtaken by both cars. So being quite defensive here. I don't mind getting overtaken by one, so I get the DRS on him. But if I get overtaken by two, it's going to be really, really hard to overtake that car in second place if I'm the third man in the DRS train. So what I wanted to do is just use no ERS at all, try and avoid using it as much as possible, and always be that second car in the DRS train. So coming through into, again, might have to use a bit of the battery here, so being very defensive, quite a late defense in the end, and still maintaining the lead, but had to use a bit of the battery here, which is not what I wanted at all. But we live to fight another day. And now Maris, he is now in the box seat. He is on the same freshness of tyres. He's been able to save probably a lot more ERS than I've been able to this stint, and now he is in the place you want to be. So we knew again that we had to do something. So I know he was going to overtake me here. So coming into this turn one, we're just going to go intentionally deep, let him have his corner. The detection point is right here, and now it's crucial that we stay in second place. We want to win this race. We have to stay in second place here. So Porky is going to do everything, doing a quite a late maneuver once again. But we managed to stay in second place. And if we got overtaken there, the chance of the win is pretty much gone. So we need to beat this car in second place here. And you can see we're on about 27%, about 30% of the ERS. Let's see what we can do in the next few laps. But the problem is Maris is very, very fast, and he's on the same freshness of tyre, so we don't have that advantage as we did in the previous stint. So now we've got to try and think outside the box a little bit more. Do we wait till the last lap, or do we wait until the penultimate lap? That is the question that I need to decide within the next couple of laps, and you will see what that decision is. We're actually turning off the ERS, so being defensive again, making sure we don't get overtaken. So I don't want to overtake Maris on this lap, otherwise that would be too early. And I want to save enough ERS to defend myself with on the last lap. So the goal was to get above 40% ERS with 2 laps to go. That was the target. So now we're just going to be following him through this midfield section. No threat from P4 or P5. They're a little way behind here. And the goal is just to try and just get as much percentage back into that battery pack. So you can see it is starting to go up. We're about almost on over 40% now. Do we go for it in this lap, or do we wait for the last lap? But there's always a risk of the last lap, and without having this tyre advantage, I felt it was going to be a pretty risky effort to do it. So we use a little bit of the ERS, but then not using any more going down this straight. So making sure we don't use the battery to overtake him. So now we are in the box seat coming into this now, and I felt to myself, as long as we have over 40%, we can defend enough. And now he is coming under attack, so I knew that he would have to use a lot of ERS here to defend his position, because he cannot afford to be in third place as well. So I felt that I probably had a bit more battery than these guys, and if I can just drive a really good last lap, then maybe we could create enough of a gap so it's going to be hard for him to overtake me. So coming into here now, just trying to keep up as high average speed as possible. The gap is about 4/10, so you can see we're just pushing absolutely everything now. Want to try and create as much gap as possible. So coming into here, we have achieved that 40-ish% coming off the final braking zone. So we're going to use a little bit here. The gap is about 5/10 of a second, so he's not close enough. So we decide to turn it off. just monitoring that gap. Do we have to use a little bit more? Yes, we do, a tiny bit, but being disciplined, not going defensive when we need to be. He's the championship leader as well. He cannot afford to take that risk, and that's something I had in mind. So getting a really good exit off his turn 1 and 2, using a little bit more. He's going to see that my light is flashing, but I felt his light would probably be flashing as well. So far, so good. And this midfield section, unless we make a huge mistake, I don't think he's going to have the opportunity. So making sure we absolutely nail this. So the gap is still about 0.4 of a second. So we're doing absolutely everything that we need to do at this stage of the race. Getting a very good exit. The gap is half a second. The gap is going up to almost 0.6 of a second. We're doing absolutely everything we need to do at this stage. 0.7 of a second now. Not quite sure what's happening here. I think them two are starting to battle quite extensively. And coming off here now, we have made the right decision to be in the lead on the last lap of the race. And cue headphone users, you're about to hear a bit of a volume.
Yes! Come on! Yes! Fucking there.
And that was pretty much a perfect round for Brazil. And yeah, we made all the right decisions there. Probably one of the best decisions I made tactically throughout a race. All the decisions were pretty much on point. Trusted my pace, and it definitely worked out in the end. So yeah, in terms of the championship, we've managed to close in on that lead for the championship. Round 5 is tomorrow out of Australia, 7:30 UK time in the evening. Thank you so much for support on the channel. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.